some things that I think the World Cup being over here has brought extra attention to, and it's just fascinating to see America through their eyes.
That's why this episode today is, yes, we want to celebrate America. We want to celebrate, our, America's birthday, step into, in a way, step into the messy middle of, hey, let's talk about what people are seeing when they've come over from all over the world. It's not just Europeans. You got South Koreans, you got Japanese, you got people from Africa, everywhere, and they're coming over and they are getting on social media and they're posting all these things about America. Here we go. Happy birthday, America. It is
Well,
250
yes.
years old.
Yes, and, so today's episode will air after the birthday celebration. So, but we're leading up to it right now, and we've got a lot to talk about in America, I feel like.
We do. And I love that this is coming out a couple days, 3 days after, we celebrate our 250th birthday as being America in 1776, and now it's 2026. Today's episode is coming out on July 7th, but we're getting ready to go celebrate the 4th on a vacation, and we'll be celebrating out in California. So we're
Yeah.
excited about that.
Yes, definitely. So, when I went to Europe for the first time in college, it made me realize how new America is, you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden, you're around architecture and buildings and people and streets and,
Yeah, there's
everything.
streets older than America. There's
Right.
buildings older than America.
Way older than America.
Yes.
I mean, like, I was so awe-inspired by just the ancient and old nature of everything, and I loved it. It revitalized a desire to study history and things like that. And then, a lot of Europeans are like, "Oh," you know, that when they think of America, they think of like, "Oh, it's just so new. It doesn't have any, like, old
Culture.
culture and history and everything else like that." And some of that's true, but in 250 years, there has developed, good, bad, right, or wrong, some things that I think the World Cup being over here has brought extra attention to. And it's just fascinating to see America through their eyes because it's all
Oh,
I've ever known.
it's
So
been so refreshing to
I know.
hear that. I mean, that's why this episode today is, yes, we want to celebrate America. We want to celebrate, our, America's birthday, step into, in a way, step into the messy middle of, hey, man, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what people are seeing when they've come over from all over the world. It's not just Europeans. You got South Koreans, you got Japanese, you got people from, Africa, all, everywhere. And they're coming over and they are getting on social media and they're posting all these things about America. And
Yes, and I know that everyone's probably seen a lot of them, but I think the attention that it draws for me is that, "Oh, wait, I get to see these things that we've gotten used to." Just like when we go to Europe and we are just, like, looking at some, church or building or something with such awe because of the age of it, where they take it for granted because it's just where they live. And so I didn't know that the same could be possible with America because everything's more new and all that kind of stuff. But to watch people eat like just barbecue ribs for the first time and just, you know, be inspired and just like in awe of the, first of all, the portion sizes.
and it's the little things, and Shannon, that's what's going on, as Americans, is we're sitting here and we're going, man, we take for granted all the blessings that we have living here in the US, living for us living right here in Texas. I mean, we take it we discount it. I mean,
Well,
they've talked about going to Bucky's. I mean,
I
Bucky's,
right.
we stop at Bucky's all the time.
We don't savor the little things um, like a convenience store and a gas station that provides so much. Like, we tend to just, like
I want to challenge that. I remember when Bucky's first opened right there in Temple, and then the other one, down just north of San Antonio, New Braunfels. There was other ones, there was a one first, off 545, and we had heard about it. But when, we drive down to Austin all the time, and when we went to Bucky's for the first time, it was kind of like all these Europeans and all these people from all over the world stopping. The thing that we loved the most about Bucky's was the clean restrooms.
yes,
I mean, it
yes.
was just like, wow.
Now, what I mean by that is that we knew it existed.
Yes.
We had heard about it. We had seen pictures, like, we knew it existed. For them, it doesn't even exist. They don't know what they don't know, and so, for us, yes, it's awesome, and we're like, "Yeah, we want one of those." But
And for some people that may
we
be
knew it was
listening,
possible, and it was
yeah,
a thing, but they didn't even know it was a they were like, "We didn't know." I mean, limitless, chips and salsa, limitless, like, refills on drinks, like, all of that was just a foreign concept to them
yes.
because they were in a foreign country, not their home country. But
And so those kind of things, but there's so much happening that I kind of want to, unpack is what, I just did a little research on what people are saying. There's this one big guy that has a lot of following from England. What he said is we were told Americans are fake. And he's going, that's not true. A lot of people say Americans are fake. And I just don't think that's true. I think Americans are just really nice and friendly.
yeah,
This was this British entrepreneur. I think for
right.
Americans, it's refreshing to hear that. That there right there is like we could do an episode on assuming. We assume these things all the time, and these foreigners from all over the world, there's
Yeah,
48 teams coming to America, Canada, and Mexico for the World Cup, and they're when they get to America, they're going, oh my goodness, we've assumed that Americans are fake. No, they're just really nice people. That's not their culture. Maybe they're very
right.
closed off and shut down, and all of a sudden people are friendly. I've had some friends, darling, that took some English people and Croatians to there's a restaurant here in Dallas called Mi Casina, and they took them and they got them some Mambo taxis, and they filmed it and they showed me, and I don't know what a Mambo taxi is because I don't drink. Do you want to share what a Mambo taxi is?
Yes, well, a Mambo Taxi is just an amped up margarita frozen, and it's a quite a sweet treat, and I think they limit you out at 3, maybe at, like, max, but
Because they're a little more potent, you know.
yeah, they're just a special it's like a sangria, frozen margarita kinda mix. It's just probably with a topper on top, I don't know. I mean, it's a magic elixir, but
So, but it
um,
was so cool to hear these buddies of mine go, "Hey, we ran into these," and then they found some Japanese people that were here for the World Cup, and they took them in, and they actually filmed it that they were freaked
yeah,
out that they were getting free chips and salsa.
right.
It's just part of our culture. We don't have a long history of culture, the 250 years, but we have this. Hey, invite people in, and so that's the thing that I keep seeing.
Yeah, and I have a true confession to make, and so is that you went to a game. You went to a World Cup game. You went to
I
England.
was gonna talk about that. I
Okay,
went
I
to
know, but
England and Croatia.
let me finish my point because this is you may not even know this, but so you went with Travis, our older son, and then our nephew, and he's
YO,
12.
YO.
We don't have to say his name. I mean, he'd probably be embarrassed, like, he's 12. But I'm just saying, I had a little bit of nervousness about, you know, possible violence or just contention because you hear about not necessarily in other countries. I mean, you hear about this in America too, like when a sporting event produces some, competitive violence and some things like that. And in other countries it happened, people have been like run over, by the crowds, in other countries and everything like that. And so I was a little nervous about that because I was making a big assumption on the just the type of competition and the crowds and the division. There's strife all over the world right now, and including our own country. And so, but turns out these matches, as they call them on the pitch, are bringing out the best in people and the hospitality, our American hospitality. As Americans, we are generally hospitable and welcoming, and with all the immigration stuff, and I don't want to go down a political path because that's not what this is about. But with all of that strife, it makes us look, and people make the assumption that we aren't welcoming or anything like that. But these matches have shown that it just brings out true hospitality and humanity and welcoming and love and care and concern for your human beings, and just also a gift of wanting to know other people, and them wanting to know about us is so, like, it humanizes everyone. It brings that human aspect to everything. Like, I really care and wanna know what you care about and what you are into, and then I wanna smuggle it all back to my country like ranch dressing. I mean.
But I'm glad you bring that up. Is like you were having knowing that Yo and I were meeting Travis out there, and you're thinking up all this stuff. I think that goes to what all these foreigners are saying all over TikTok and Instagram and social media about, hey, we've been told a lie by our media that, hey, Americans are fake, they're not nice. Oh, it's this kind of violent, crazy culture. I think in the same way, uh, we're getting, prior to the World Cup coming, oh, it's going to be chaos. There's going to be all this stuff, and actually, I've been and I'm gonna. This sounds braggadocious, but I've been to a Super Bowl. I've been to a World Series. I've been to the NBA final.
Bragger, bragger.
I've been to the national championship in
Yeah,
college football.
bragger, bragger.
Man, going to England Croatia game, it was really magical. And I'm not even into soccer, but it was such a cool experience with my
Yeah.
son and my nephew. But the other thing is, the coolest part was it was at Cowboy Stadium, but they took all the Cowboy stuff down. It didn't say AT&T. They took down. There was none of the advertisement we see when you go to big stadiums. It was so refreshing. And then there was the chance with the English when they went ahead, and in front of me there was some guys from England and their buddies from Croatia, and they were wearing different shirts, and then behind us were these Croatians, and we were high-fiving, all of them. It was such a cool experience, and
Yeah.
there wasn't that tension that we think about. And I left that game. We've gone to the Texas OU game so
I was
many
about
times.
to say we have so much more tension at like a
Yeah.
Texas OU game.
Yeah, and there's just this tension leaving the stadium.
Yeah,
If we've lost, or if
yeah,
we've won, between OU and Texas fans, there wasn't any of that with Croatia and England. And
right.
it was really encouraging. And that's some of the stuff that we were looking at and seeing on social media and seeing on the news, because the news is actually, the local news here in Dallas is actually reporting, oh, people really like America.
Well, and it's also if we can bring everybody together, because like I know we're going to France in August, which, as you pointed out, would be really cool if France wins because that would be cool to be there. But, like, I plan on buying a lot of cosmetics and things like that in France that you don't know about because they have cleaner products, they have better, it's just like and it's all in the pharmacy, like, in the pharmacy there, and it's just like clean beauty on steroids, and it's awesome, and people smuggle stuff back and whatever, and it's kinda like, okay, if we can all just kinda share ideas and figure out what people are good at and all that kinda stuff, and then turns out they're smuggling, like I mentioned before, the ranch dressing. It's like, what are they taking from America? Oh, ranch dressing. Well, that's, interesting, but also just kind of funny that we want to celebrate other cultures and other foods and other people
Experiences,
and
yeah.
experiences,
Yes.
and it
And
just
people
it's been so celebrated, and it's taken
the World Cup
other
to come.
people. Yes, I
Yes,
agree,
other
yeah.
other nations to come, and I mean, we're not saying anything new, and this isn't about being political, but man, there's a lot of strife in our country. But the biggest strife is we are inundated all the time with news. We're inundated. We're doing a podcast. There's podcast about this stuff, and instead, let's celebrate. Humanity. Let's celebrate. That we're all created in the image of God, and all of a sudden it has taken all these people from all over the world to come and go, wait a minute, we've been given a lie, and they've said it by our media, that
Right.
hey, there's all this tension and strife, and that we're fake, and we don't care about anything. And it becomes this political, mindset when I love it when I step back and see all the different people from different cultures, saying all this stuff. This one German guy talked about going to Waffle House at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And he posted, just had our first Waffle House experience at 1 a.m. Great food, great prices, friendly staff, 10 of 10. We'll be coming back. Then he
Yeah.
talked about Bucky's. I mean,
Well, and there
it,
was a guy that decided to he's a big runner, and so when he was in town for World Cup games, he decided to run streets of Chicago, and he kind of on purpose picked the most dangerous or supposedly, allegedly the most scary neighborhoods or whatever with the most crime. And he just decided to run those streets and just say hi to the people that live there and then ask them questions. What makes your neighborhood special? And, they all had something to say. It didn't matter. And none of it was, oh, well, we have a lot of crime in this neighborhood or whatever. He had a flawless experience running the streets, just asking people what was special about their neighborhood and what was going on with them. So I just think that that just brings to mind that if you celebrate the wins in life and the things that it's like I told one of Beck's friends recently because they had a loss in their fraternity and at a young age, and it's sad and it affects everyone. And we've had a lot of losses last July 4th in Texas too. And so, but it's like when the pain becomes bigger and bigger, and the division and the negative and all of the things, if we focus just so heavily on all that, it just gets bigger. It just gets bigger. But all of a sudden, when you have a lot of new people from other countries that have never been here to point out the beauty and the caring and concern and love in this, country, then the love just gets bigger and the pain gets smaller because love, hope, and faith, but
greatest of
the
these is love.
greatest of these is love. I was butchering that by adding peace and everything else, but it's whatever. And so when we concentrate on the love piece and the hospitality piece and the care and concern for other human beings, the pain gets smaller and the division gets smaller and people come together. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like if if you could organically, I mean, if you could not organically manufacture that kind of community and bringing together of people, that would be great. We would all be peaceful, would probably be like Stepford. and just walking around like robots, but it has been organically produced by this World Cup situation, I think.
Oh, for sure. And you know what, I was reading about this one Boston content creator, Sean Warren. You know, he said social media is often full of negativity, and seeing nothing but pure joy and happiness in his feed for the past week has been his greatest thing. It's like, man, all of a sudden he's clicking on all these viral moments of going into Bucky's or eating the chips,
Yeah.
or was it the guy that said you get free refills? I'm going to drink 100 Cokes. You know,
Yes. No. And they took the Japanese guy to Bob's and he had the steak and the carrots and then they gave him the dessert and they go, "Have you ever seen a dessert so big?" And he goes, "Not unless it was a wedding." A
yeah,
wedding cake. He
yes,
goes, "This dessert for me is like a wedding cake." And I was
yeah, and people are going.
they're like,
And but
"It's huge."
it's those little things, but I love what you're
But that's
saying.
sharing a meal together. That's sharing, you know, things that are to be savored and
And so there, right there, it's like once again, America, who we are as a culture, when we put away our political bias, when we get away from always talking negative, and we just see down at the root, at the culture, down deeper, instead of we've talked about the leaves, but down at the root is, man, we want to see well for others. I've read stories, Shannon, where people have been eating at restaurants and they can't get an Uber, and the owner drove them to, wherever it was in Boston or Kansas City or here in
right,
Dallas.
right.
That, hey, no, I've heard other things of, oh, they're driving through the country coming from Atlanta to Dallas for another game, and they stop in Alabama, and all of a sudden the fire department, they wanted to see the fire department, they brought them in, and that's who we are. Even though we're
Yeah,
not that old of a nation, and man, we have 250 years, and yet right now there's some people that don't want to celebrate that. Instead of,
right,
we celebrate other birthdays, we celebrate other things. It's like celebration is part of life. You know what
right,
what we've talked about before in Philippians 4:8. Think of whatever's excellent, whatever's worthy, whatever's worth joy. Think of those things. If we get into this negative thinking, oh, it can just kind of rob us. I've been
even
so encouraged.
a boycotting mentality or a canceling mentality or a Karen mentality, and get your manager, things like that could have come into play because at the beginning of the World Cup experience in America, I did hear some people starting to complain about, well, certain countries don't tip, because that's not their culture. And I mean, when we travel, it's like, do they tip here? Do they not tip here? What's normal? What's, built into the sales tax and the money exchange and all the things. And I did hear there was starting to pipe up a little, complaining about how people from certain countries didn't know how things worked in America. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, and that's
And
thinking of the
and
negative.
s
That's
right,
getting in there
and but
and kinda spinning
it
it.
was just starting to kinda and I was like, "I hope no one's complaining about tipping and or anything like that." Like, it people just have to figure that stuff out by themselves, but it with all the positive, it's like I was talking about the pain getting smaller with all the positive and the love, but it was just starting to tick up, and then all of a sudden, you know, the world kind of exploded with all these funny stories. I mean, TSA had to put out an announcement that y'all thought was fake. Travis, Beck, and you all thought it was fake. It was a real TSA announcement saying, "Please check your ranch dressing. Don't carry it on. We can't take that kind of liquid in a carry-on. We'll have to take it away. Just check it. We'll let it go through. We'll let it slide. You can take all the ranch dressing you want." But
Because people found out how you can dip hamburgers, pizza, french fries,
well,
everything into
listen,
ranch dressing. I
we
mean,
just had this
we
conversation.
ha
I raised our children on ranch dressing. Like
it
it's for everything. It's
it's the
just
yeah, one of the best condiments known to man.
yes. So it's just funny that the negativity was starting to tick up, but then the funny stuff, even the funny real stuff, like TSA having to say, like, "We know you love your ranch," you know, all that started to take over. And that's where the wave of kindness and the wave of humanity and all of that stuff just overwashes the negativity, and it kinda leaves the media and whoever else wants to be negative and whatever kinda in the dust. Like, you know
And so I'm sitting here hoping that, all these talk shows, the one talk show that I think's the worst ever that you watch, The View. I mean, they're just negative all the time. They're just a bunch of negative freaking women that just I need to contain myself. Um, but
Okay,
if they
I know.
just celebrated
It's
some
not your
positive
preference.
stuff,
Right, I
it's just
agree,
like
I agree.
that's the thing that I'm just getting so fired up about with
I just
everything
think
that
that
keeps happening.
all I watch a lot of different mediums of news because I like to get a lot of different angles, and quite frankly, I don't like any of them anymore, and certainly people can make suggestions for me, but I just enjoy this feeling. I'm gonna go ahead and absorb this whole feeling of, like, America is great. It's a cool place.
It's a
It's
badass
got a lot
place,
of
and it's
cool
like
stuff, and
but
so
but
let's
that's the
just I'm gonna
one that's I think that's the one thing where America we as consumers, because we're a consumer culture,
yeah,
but man, we're friendly, we're generous, we'll go out of our way to drive someone. I'm not sure other cultures would do that if they were in the World Cup, if they're the owner of the restaurant and say, no, no, I'll take you. There might be, but the bottom line is that we keep watching whatever news outlet, whatever, show we get to, and we feed on that negativity. Instead, I'm hoping that from this experience, from other people from around the world, seeing what they're seeing about us as Americans, that we're generous, we're friendly. Uh, we have some, we're ridiculous in some of the best ways, and we're deeply proud. That this having the FIFA here, the World Cup, it's also this national redemption arc playing out in real time on social media. It's like it is this national redemption arc going, wait a minute, we do live in an incredibly wonderful country. And man, let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate the gifts all of us bring. It's like when tragedy occurs, we show up.
right,
When massive things happen like that. Now, are we perfect? No, there's only one that's perfect. And he
right.
he he used two nails unlike anybody else.
Well, there are lots of things that can be debated and troubleshot, you know? That's been the big word for the past couple of months in our house is that I feel like I'm a troubleshooter. And in fact, like, I mean, just anytime when COVID hit and the school districts were trying to figure out what was happening, I was like, where's the war room? I want to get in the war room and let's just talk. Let's just hash it out. And nobody needs to be right or wrong or good or bad or what, like, let's figure this out. And so I think that when you diffuse like that when you have common nice discourse with perfect strangers, then you can accomplish some troubleshooting and I mean, we have some broken systems in this country, clearly. I mean, healthcare is one, huge one. I mean, we have some broken systems on both sides, on every side. Every side, it's broken in this country. But if we can just have some pleasant, gentle,
What but it's not just pleasant, it goes back to the messy middle. Is can we hold space
yeah,
for the other?
right.
Can
Well,
we
that's what
hold
I'm
space?
saying. Just listen and
Can
just try
we
to,
and learn how to listen to what's not being said and
right.
hear someone else's view? Is because I love this book. I have it in my office. And it's a political book, and what it says, why the right gets it wrong and the left doesn't get it. It's like
Yeah.
both sides are wrong.
Well, right, but it's about troubleshooting and trying to, but I find that with everything, even with, yeah, parenting or your job or something, when you realize you've been living like, let's say you're a private school person as opposed to a public school person, and you have spent the past 20 years raising your kids in private school institutions. And so you went to private school and whatever, you are a private school person. For you to change that thought process based on whatever new data is coming in or new location you're living or whatever it is, if you change your decision on that, I think people feel like they are living a false identity or they're changing their entire credibility on anything. They don't want to veer from what they have stuck in on. I mean, I'm guilty, you're guilty. I mean, we are all guilty of that in certain it takes us to let down the walls, hold space, listen, and come together in a human way to listen and decide maybe it's time for a change, maybe it's not. Do we agree? Do we disagree? Can we agree to disagree? Whatever it is, but civil discourse. It just
Well, and that's the coolest part is we have it. It is the crazy thing is the world has shown up expecting one version of America. And
right,
and the version they have of America, and then it's been radically changed for them by experiencing us and our culture and everything that goes along with it. But their only version they've seen is from the news. And they
right,
came in and they found something completely different.
right.
They were generous, were friendly, sometimes even take the shirt off our backs, and pause and go, "Oh, you don't know where you're going," or, "Oh, hey, why don't you try this? Trust me."
Yeah,
It's like, "Hey,
right.
you need ribs." I saw a deal. It's like, "No, no, with the ribs, you don't use a fork. Pick it up." And the guy who was making
Yes,
the ribs showed him, and it gets dirty, and that's why we have these wet wipes. It was just like, no, we want to see people experience good things. And so
right,
it's like America is wonderful. Let's celebrate the positives. Then let's have civil discourse. Let's be able to come together and talk and not just attack,
right.
And so that's the crazy thing.
That's funny because attack was your sucker word.
It was attack, attack, attack. I didn't even know how to, I coached soccer, 20
Like,
years
we're
ago.
talking pre-K,
No,
four-year-olds
no.
herding
And
cats.
yeah, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 year olds. And then
Yes,
as they got a little older, I go, I don't know anything about soccer. And so all I knew is attack.
I know.
I didn't know how to
I didn't
line
know
them up.
anything about it
And
either, and
so,
turns out our sons weren't soccer players either,
yeah,
so
well, it might have been the
it's
coach,
I mean, it
but
might have been their
I
beginning.
really, that World Cup was that experience. And I want to thank my son, his girlfriend's family for, letting us use those tickets. My nephew had an incredible experience.
Well, it
It
was like
was
a
wild.
it's like a core memory for him, for all y'all.
I just also it's crazy how the world comes together. I'm watching the games. I'm getting ready. We're going to get off this and I'm going to turn on and watch some games when we
I
get
know,
done before we go on our trip. And
I
so
know.
I'm
We
excited.
are watching them, and then we can do a podcast later on, American well, it's everywhere, but betting now has gotten so out of
Oh, it's
control,
out of
gambling.
control. It
And
is. I mean,
there's
and it's like,
everything to gamble on, I mean,
yes.
everything.
And it's not even funny. It's truly that
I know,
process addiction. It's like,
I'm
wow.
laughing because I wanted this episode to be real celebratory and fun, and then we can get into that
Yeah.
later.
And so
But
happy
everybody
birthday,
have a
America.
yes, and have a
Eh,
safe oh, well, you will have already when you hear this, you will already have had your 4th of July, but let's go into the new year for America and, you know,
And for me, Shannon, 4th of July is
keep
one
it
of my
positive.
favorite holidays. It's just to have fun, be with friends, and watch some fireworks and play some games. I'm
Eat hot
excited.
dogs.
Eat
Yeah.
hot dogs. So happy birthday, America. Think about the positive things from this past weekend that you did for the 4th of July.
Yeah. Thank you.